Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, guys. Hey, I am joined by Joe Franklin III. Joe, welcome back to the program. So nice to have you with us.
Hey, it's great to be here, Casey. It's Joe Frankie, like Frankie and Johnny.
Oh my God, that was just a that was a callback from like my youth. Remember the Joe Franklin show? I must have been thinking of that. I'm so sorry. It's
No problem.
Joe Frankie the third. I don't know. Man, that's a lapsus memoria, or whatever they call it. But Joe is a West Point graduate. He's a combat veteran. He's a best-selling author. He's got 40 years experience, and the CEO over there at JFIII Associates, correct? And that's the website?
The website's, yeah, JFIII
Okay, great. Now, we were talking last time, and you were talking about the importance of the LinkedIn.
Right.
LinkedIn is the bread and butter. This is number one in. Can you tell us why it's so important?
Well, I mean, the way it kind of started out was kind of a layout of a simple resume. Here's who I am. This is kind of what I did in a simple format. And then over the last 18 years, it went from a small app, to be purchased by Microsoft. And, and as they found good things to add LinkedIn, Microsoft is not short of money. And so they've added, an educational piece, a kind of a certification piece. And so they've continued to add things every day. For example, they have features for employers to compare their LinkedIn applicants' profiles against the position specification or job description, and then give that feedback to the individual, like you're at the 40% level, you're at the 60% level, you're at this level. So I think as time goes by, those tools are going to become more important. And so being on LinkedIn, being there properly so that you can be seen for what you bring to the table, I think is going to be critical for every individual. And based on what we've just been through, there's no guarantees out there.
Yeah, true. Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, could you give us a couple do's and don'ts when you're setting up your LinkedIn?
First of all, LinkedIn's been around long enough. You can get all kinds of books on how to do it. All you have to do on LinkedIn basically is get on and put your name in, put at least one job in, and some basic things, and that just kind of gets you started. But LinkedIn's kind of like the Wall Street Journal. You want to go more than just the headline. Hi, I'm Joe Frankie. I am a CEO. Okay, what companies did you work for? Who'd you work for before that? All that kind of stuff. So the rest of the Wall Street Journal is there to fill out. So they give you the skeleton.
Right. Okay.
It's up to you to put muscles, ligaments, and tendons on that.
A good example. Yeah. Now, say you who's the ideal client for you to help with your business?
I have the ideal client, the greatest people that I've helped, I think, are 40-plus-year-olds trying to figure out what's next.
What's next? Got
And
it.
the reason I say that is 40-plus-year-olds, nobody's chasing them anymore.
Okay.
Once you get up there around 45, your bandwidth, you got another 15 years. And so companies, man, there's that whole idea that we want to have a 15-year bandwidth with you. And I think that's not relevant in today's world, but things don't change. So if you're in that realm, I mean, to me, you got to be show ready 24/7, 365, because you've got to have done all the work for anybody. For example, so there's executive recruiters like me, contract recruiters, contingency recruiters, HR recruiters. And so a lot of the jobs for, I'd say 35 and above, they're not really posted anymore. They're not in the public space. They've been given to recruiters.
Right.
So you don't necessarily see them. So what happens is you've got to be found by those that are searching for that next opportunity that you can't see.
I see. Okay.
And so it's like showing up at the soccer game, your kid's probably not going to play if he doesn't have shoes and shin guards.
I love it. Another one. Another good image there. Now, when I think I'm getting kind of what you do. So most people that you'll deal with, or the majority, I would assume, are heads of, say, of a department head, and they'll come to you and ask you if you have uh, like an in with where to look for something that they need. You'll work with the higher ups.
So what happens is I really work with a lot of people trying, if they know where they're at, right? Say we're a 40-year-old and we're at a director job, right? So they want to try to be a vice president, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So they might come to me and say, "Hey, Joe, how do I want to get to be vice president?" Okay, so first thing we do is, "Hey, do you have everything that somebody would need to know about your past to make good judgment on you?" So what I always say is, look, if you know where you are and you know where you want to go, there's a way to build a LinkedIn bridge to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And that LinkedIn bridge has got all the stuff that people would need to know. It's kind of like you and I probably like really good filet mignon.
Oh yeah.
Well, because we like that doesn't mean we should take a piece of it and go fishing with it. Because the fish like what it's likes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to try to catch that fish with what the fish likes to eat. And I can't tell you how many people out there just decide to go fishing on their LinkedIn profile with filet mignon.
That's great. I love these examples. Paint just a great picture, and it brings the point home. It gets you to understand it. Now,
Let me ask you a question,
sure.
Casey. Okay. Do you do your own taxes?
No.
Okay. I don't either. I go rent somebody else's brain that knows that stuff inside and out and gives me one level between me and the federal government. So if you do that for yourself, why wouldn't you go rent somebody else's brain to kind of help you get what you want?
It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you put it that way. Wow, Mr. Producer, let's bring in a question from the audience. I know there's a lot of people over there, so let's get started. We'll go to them back and forth throughout the
Okay,
show
sure.
here because people seem to want to ask you a lot of questions here.
All right, we have Adam in Santa Fe wants to know, should we still use LinkedIn even if we have a stable job?
To me, in today's world, you got to be ready 24/7, 365. If
Show ready.
You got to be show ready. I mean, that's just like a guy, says, "Hey, I want some help," and so his profile picture on LinkedIn, he's got his big fish, right? And I'm saying, "Hey, you need to look just like me, okay? Because people need to see how you would show up at an interview." So to me, your LinkedIn profile is representing you as an avatar in the virtual world. You're meeting people whether you know it or not, 24/7, 365. So, if it's just like if your mother checks you out before you go to church, right? I mean, she checks your backside, she checks your front side, so if you want to be available for an opportunity, hey, you got to have your front side and backside checked 24/7, 365. And LinkedIn is what's doing that for you. So,
Okay.
secondly, if you decide right now, hey, I'm going to beef up my LinkedIn profile, there's a few things that you could sprint on, okay, and do in a couple of hours. But the rest of it is kind of like writing a term paper. You need to think it out, draft, redraft, because it's really the quality of your English in telling a story that you solve problems. I mean, nobody hires you for what responsibilities you've had. They hire you because you solve problems and they have a problem they want you to solve now, or they wouldn't have a requirement.
Right, right. Yeah. And that is so important, isn't it? The grammar and the way you write. Isn't that something that they look at a lot, or am I not correct?
Well, it it, it all helps in, to me, 80% of it is you got to get the content there.
Yeah.
And then the other 10% is you can get help with one of your friends saying, "Hey, how could I say this better?" Or is this grammatically correct? Or, there's all kinds of little software tools that will help you with that too.
Right, right. Good question. Thank you for that one. Whoever wrote that one in. What else you got?
Thanks, Adam.
Adam. Thank you.
All right, so we have Andrew in Philadelphia says, "Do you recommend reaching out to a company if we haven't heard back about an application?"
I think if you haven't heard back, it never hurts to inquire. The worst that could happen is they still don't respond back,
Right.
but it shows initiative on your part.
Mhm.
And secondly, it satisfies your own thought about that. Now, should you ask 3 times in a week? I don't think so. I mean, because people, you know, that are looking or involved in a search, they've got a day job too
Right.
of them. So it's when they get that hour, on Thursday that they're going to progress this thing the next further. But no, inquiries, it's good on you to think about doing that.
And what's the line between being a pain in the you know what and being persistent, or does that depend on the person? I guess everyone's
That
different.
really
What do you
going
think?
to depend on that situation. But if you're in a process where they're trying to make a decision, like during the interview process or something, they told you, hey, they're going to get back with you. Then once a week follow up would be normal. If you've submitted an application, you're not hearing anything. You probably did that because you applied online, right?
Yeah.
And so what's happened is you're just one of the other 1,000 that may have applied online, and and they got to plow through that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which means, like, if you're applying online, let's talk a little bit about that,
Mm-hmm.
or anything. Remember, the resume wants to know, hey, line by line, have you done this and to what extent? And so everybody says, well, I'm going to submit my resume. And I said, no, you're going to create a resume
Okay.
against that job spec line by line. Because really, they're not asking, you know, they're only asking what's on that resume. You can give them a little bit of additional stuff, but if you haven't answered the mail, then that's not going to be good.
Right. Right. So you want to tailor each one. You don't want a cookie cutter resume for everything. Is that kind of
There's no such thing as a cookie cutter resume. Your LinkedIn profile is the avatar of you. Everything about you, your emotional intelligence, your IQ intelligence, it's the full Wall Street Journal. The resume is the above the fold of the front page of the Wall Street Journal, where they've asked specifically, hey, do you have this experience, line by line? And so you need to answer the mail. And a lot of people forget, because what they're going to do is they're going to run it through a machine. The software says, okay, does he have 4 more years experience? Does he have something? And so your resume has to say, I have 7 years experience. I have this. And, if you don't do it that way, then the person that really specifically answered the mail is going to the top of the pile.
Got it. Got it. I see how important that could be. And it shows that you put time into it too. I mean, like you said, they have a problem or something that they want to achieve, and you supply that. They don't care about what you did if it's something else or what responsibilities you had. I get when you said that.
Yeah, so they'll might want to know about some responsibilities, but it will be tied up with some sort of experience type thing.
I was wondering, like, what made you go in this direction?
What happens is when I've been using and helping people with LinkedIn for 18 years. So I got on LinkedIn, about a year or about 7 months after it started.
Mhm.
And what I found about it, about it was a perfect tool to help military people translate what they did in the service, because now they put it out there and you could kind of help them say, okay, I understand what you did because I spent 34 years in the military.
Right.
What the hiring manager really wants to know about that is this. And so consequently, that's the key.
I see. How about during the pandemic? Were you? How were you affected, and how did you have to pivot?
I that's an interesting story, Casey.
Yeah.
I always thought, woe is me, Hurricane Harvey hit. We got 7 feet of water in the office down in the Galleria area, because we were kind of next to a bayou. And, the office furniture, and when we say water, it's really diesel fuel water and whatever's in the water, right?
Right.
And it wasn't pretty. So my partner and I decided, hey, do we want to re-outfit an office, all that kind of stuff. And he said, no, I think I'm going to go home and do this. And, so I moved my office and everything to the house. I already kept the important stuff there anyway.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought, oh, this is terrible. I'm, going to the home office. So when you do that, it takes about 6 months, as you would imagine, even if you moved across the street in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wants to get everything all kind of tuned up and the electrical sockets and, so anyway, it took me about 6 months to get organized to be able to work, out of here. And hey, that was the good Lord taking care of me.
Yeah.
Because when the pandemic hit, there was no pivot for me.
Oh, so this was even before. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was 2017. So when this stuff rolls in 2020, I'm already
Ready to go.
yeah, and I can work my complete business from a laptop and a cell phone. And it took a while to get there.
I got you.
But yeah, so I do this in the Bahamas as well as Las Vegas or anywhere my wife likes to travel.
That's great. Okay, let's go back to the audience. Mr. Producer, what do you got?
We have Sally in Chicago wants to know, does having a college degree still help during the job search?
Great question.
Okay, having a college degree, it depends on what the job search is about. Maybe the job search is not dependent on a college degree. Naturally, if you're an engineer going into an engineering space, they would probably want you to have an engineering degree. Although, if you pass state certifications in some states, you don't require a degree, but you will know your stuff. And so. And it's becoming more open post-pandemic than it was before. So I think there's the answer is it's more yes after the pandemic than before the pandemic.
Interesting. Good question. I have a question for you. I don't know if you work with people coming right out of high school, the younger people, and if you do. I know you might say military because that's the course that you took and it worked out real well. What about, do you think for the most part learning a trade is more important than going to a liberal arts school if you're lucky enough to be able to do that?
Well, I think today you can make a super great living as a plumber or a mechanic that knows stuff inside and out. Because if you're a mechanic today, you're computer tech.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like when I was in the Army. If you worked on the old Huey helicopter, you could take some baling wire, tape, and one toolbox out there and you can kind of work on it, right? Okay, but you take a Black Hawk helicopter and you need all kinds of computer test sets and everything else because the feedback mechanisms are all digital.
Okay.
And on the old Huey helicopter, it was vacuum and electronic, just kind of like your car used to be a long time ago. So, the trades offer a lot. And I mean, we need welders, pipe fitters. I'll bet you if I went to in Houston here, I mean, they would kind of, hey, they'll pay you as they train you.
Probably, right?
Welding, yeah.
Yeah. So they have this thing. I don't know if they have it by you, but in New York they have a thing called BOCES. It's for high school people in high school. That it's strictly for a trade to learn how to be a mechanic, to be a plumber or something like that. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't kids go and do that to have that
Yeah.
even as a backup, right?
I mean, New York was really smart about that years ago. My father-in-law, who graduated from high school, I think in Brooklyn, his trade was photography.
Okay.
And so, I mean, when he ended high school, he knew how to price stuff. He knew how to handle the chemicals. He run a dark room. I mean, that kind of not around anymore, but because it's all digital.
Right.
But he knew a trade, when he left high school, and that wasn't the only trade there. That was the one that he chose, and they got into it. And I really think New York's been ahead in that for a long time.
So learning a trade is real important, and it's definitely a positive thing if people can.
Yeah, I mean, you got options,
Yeah.
So if you have a passion to do that kind of stuff, I mean, it's great. And the trades need you younger, and then as you progress through it and become an apprentice and work on a master thing, and then you either run your own business.
Yeah. How do you feel about the window for the military? How what is the window to get involved in the military?
So I always encourage the public speaking I do, that I encourage all young people to get involved and do a hitch, do a tour, 2 to 3 years, more if you want. But it will help you a great deal. One, it matures you faster. I mean, when you think about it today in the private sector, we don't have these tools to mature kids faster. When I grew up, I mean, we were in a family restaurant business. So, I mean, I knew the restaurant business. My aunt and uncle had a service station. I knew how to change the points in a truck, change tractor tires, fix flats,
Mm.
all that kind of stuff. And, that was hard work.
Yeah.
You talk about trying to change a tube in a tractor tire. I
Right.
mean, we're talking about long bars and leverage and
Uh-huh. So yeah, no, I get what you say. Mr. Producer, do I have time for one more question? Okay, let's do one more question. Guys, you are watching the Joe Frankie the third show. And Joe, how do we get a hold of you one more time?
the best way is on the website at JFIIassociates.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, and Joe Frankie III. The same is true. I've tried to keep the Joe Frankie III for Twitter and everything else.
Okay. All right. A question for Joe Frankie.
Nicole in Buffalo wants to know, what is the most professional way to decline a job offer?
Good one, Nicole.
There's two parts to that. Say you get an opportunity to be interviewed, right? And you look at it and you say, okay, this is really not for me. And depending on how good you are at interviewing, you might want to just go take that interview, and because you have to sharpen that blade.
Keep it sharp. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no experience like doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But say that they made a job offer and they decline it, and hey, I mean, they're expecting that. The other thing is, if you're declining it outright, you just want to say a nice note. Thanks for your consideration. I appreciated your time. And, based on the interaction and feedback, I don't think I'm the best person for this or whatever, but you just want to be nice and congenial.
Mm-hmm.
You would do it in the same way that you were writing your note to your grandmother if she was the one that sent you the job offer.
And on that, Joe Frankie the third, Love talking to you. Love what you're doing. You want to leave us with it in part? Leave us with anything that you're thinking. Anything else that you want us to think about?
Yeah, I'd say, look, LinkedIn is your billboard to the world. Okay. So if you choose not to have a billboard, then don't complain about nobody knowing about who you are and what you do. And then the bottom line on LinkedIn, if it's not on your profile, you never, ever in your life did it.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.